Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Convos. We have with us tonight Randall Brown, and we're so glad to talk with him. And we're talking tonight about discipleship. But before we get into any of that, I just want to let Randall introduce himself and let us know a little bit about what he does and where he's from.
Hey, thanks, Tim. Good to be with you and good to be with everyone, folks. It's good to spend some time with you. Tim said, Randall Brown, I'm married. I'm a very, very old man. I've got 3 married daughters and 6.5 grandchildren, 6 2/3 grandchildren. My current ministry, where I love where I am, my wife and I are the Salvo leaders at Chatswood in Sydney. And we love being here, love working with the people here, and love seeing our community transformed by Jesus as we make disciples. So discipleship, disciple making is dear to my heart.
Absolutely. Oh, that's great. And look, like I said, we're here to talk about discipleship. But before we begin, I think maybe some of the audience that will be watching this would be a church audience, and some would not be a church audience. Some would have never experienced church or faith or anything like that before. So can you just talk to us a little bit about what discipleship is before we kind of get going?
Yes, good question. The definition of the word disciple means to be a follower. So you can be a disciple of a football team, and you can be a disciple. In our context, we talk about being a disciple of Jesus. That means to be a follower of Jesus. The word, when it was first put into the Bible, meant that you were following them so closely behind, you're almost in step with them. So to be a disciple means to be in step with Jesus, walking behind him, beside him, constantly connected to him in relationship. And so that's the definition of being a disciple. Discipleship is the process of becoming like Jesus. I think there was a writer who said a disciple is someone who is like Jesus if Jesus was like them. So that's this interconnectedness of what it means. So discipleship is the process. I think also we probably also add the term of disciple making. So not only to be like Jesus, discipleship means to be like Jesus, but disciple making means to encourage others to be like Jesus too.
Right, absolutely. And so that's really good. There have been over the years some misconceptions about what discipleship actually is and what disciple making is and what being a disciple is. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, about how perhaps we've gotten it wrong over the years yeah.
I don't think that we've got discipleship particularly wrong. I think that we are determined. Most people who believe in Jesus want to be like Jesus, and they are pretty determined to do that in whatever way they can. I think the idea of being like Jesus, following Jesus, obeying Jesus, I think we want to do that. And I think for that reason, discipleship is important.
Yeah.
Where I think we may have got some misconceptions is that we have kind of turned discipleship into the being like Jesus but not doing what Jesus did. And there's a bunch of reasons in that. I think part of that is the idea that we saw some of the really good disciple makers like Billy Graham and thought, I can't possibly be like him, so therefore it mustn't be for me. Right. I honestly think we look at Jesus and think we can't do what he did too. If you look at, when we read the Gospels, when we read the New Testament, we always, because that's the way it's lined up in the Bible, we usually start with Matthew. And in the first few chapters of Matthew, you've got the story of Jesus' birth, and then you've got the story of him meeting John the Baptist and then being tempted in the desert. And then the next section is him beginning his preaching ministry, and then the next section is he calls his disciples, and the story is well known to believers where it says, and Jesus was walking on the beach and saw these guys and said, follow me, and they immediately dropped their nets and did it. And most of us have got neighbours who we, one way or another, have maybe said, hey, do you want to come to church? And they went, nah. And we went, well, I can't do what Jesus did because he was Jesus and he just went like that, and they followed him. The problem with that is it's created the misconception that we can't do what Jesus did. And without spending too much time on it, that reading of Matthew is not actually in good chronological order. At the end of the book of John, John says, If everything that Jesus said and did was written down to take all the world to fill the books. And I think what we've got wrong when we read Matthew is that there's a time lag in there that we don't know about. A better reading is what Jesus is in John, the first part of John. And I might talk about that. We can talk about that, about Jesus' methods of disciple making. Point I'm trying to make. We want to be like Jesus, but we feel like we're not equipped to make disciples. And so, to be honest, I think we do the great commandment really well, the idea of love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength, and love your neighbour as yourself. We do that part because that's good discipleship, but we don't do the Great Commission, which Jesus says, all authority is given in my name, go into the world and make disciples. I feel like in a way we may have outsourced that because we feel like we're not equipped to do it. But I love that Great Commission verses because the truth of it is Jesus says, all authority is in my name. And then at the end of it, it says, I will be with you always. So disciple making is a work of God and a work of the Spirit. So that's a long answer to a simple question. You will learn that from me, Tim.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. But so good. Listen, and it's, I've heard you say before, because I mean, we've talked about this before and you visited us here at Carndon. We had some time together around discipleship. And you talked about the Great Commission and that it's not simply bringing others to Jesus, but it's also teaching others to do the same, right? And that's what really essentially discipleship and disciple making is all about, right? Yeah,
it has to be. When Jesus gave the Great Commission, he just didn't give it to the 12. And the evidence of that is we're here.
Yeah, that's right.
There are still believers. There are still somehow the 12 got the message that they had to tell somebody else and teach them to tell somebody else.
Yeah, and it's come all the way down
the line, yeah. And obviously the challenge in this is who are we telling? Who are we bringing towards closer to Jesus? Because I don't want the line to stop with me.
No.
I don't want that hanging over my head. I'm not just saying from a guilt. I also don't want people I don't want to be the people who miss out on the joy of a relationship with Jesus, you know, the fulfillment and the peace and the forgiveness and the understanding of his deep love for me. I want people to know about that. So that Great Commission of go into the world and make disciples and teach them to do the same really matters.
Absolutely. Look, you talked about being like Jesus, and that's what discipleship is all about. And so, you know, obviously Jesus had his methods of discipleship. So can we talk about that for a little bit? Just about some of the ways in which we can be like him when it comes to making disciples?
Yeah, sure. So that's what I started to think about, started to get to before. In the beginning of the book of John, so Jesus meets with John the Baptist. And John the Baptist has a whole bunch of guys who are following him, looking for something more. And when Jesus comes along and gets baptized, a lot of those disciples, this is about John 1, I would say about verse 39, those disciples say, are you, what's the deal with you? And Jesus says, come and see. And his first call to his disciples, to his followers are, just check it out. So Jesus' methods, first of all, was come and see. Just check it out. Obligation-free trial, folks. Come and see, right? And it's not until, and this is where we get confusion between the John passage and the Matthew passage, it's not until about 18 months later that Jesus says, follow me. Right. And if you compare the two passages, you can see that there's a bunch of events in that, like John going to prison, which mentions in Matthew, but isn't mentioned in John. So you can kind of see that John has gets the bigger picture of that timeline, whereas Matthew has truncated the timeline a lot. So it's not until that there's this long journey that Jesus does with those guys. He first of all says, come and see. Then he says, follow me. And then the next thing he says to them, which is in Matthew 4:19, is, and I will make you fishers of men. So that's come and see, follow me, I will make you fishers of men. And then finally, Jesus' last call to them is John 15, and you will bear fruit. So that's what we were just saying then. That's the multiplication part. That's the and tell somebody else about it. I love Matthew 4:19 because it's got everything. It says, follow me. It's got everything in it, one thing. It's got salvation, follow me. Then it's got, and I will make you, which is the kind of the holiness, the discipleship thing. It's got disciple making, follow me. Matthew 4:19, discipleship, follow me. Disciple making, follow me is salvation. Discipleship is I will make you, and multiplication, fishers of men.
Yeah.
That's the Christian story or the Christian task or the Christian responsibility in one verse. Matthew 14. Memorize it, Tim. I'll check you.
So good. That's
You can sing the chorus too, by the way. If you can't memorize the verse, there is an old chorus about I will make you fishers of men.
Oh yes, if you follow me. I remember that one actually.
It's in your head now.
That's an oldie but a goodie. Oh, so good. Listen, I think all of this really boils down to relationship, doesn't it?
Yes.
When it comes to discipleship, I think a word that's synonymous with discipleship in my mind is relationship. So
Yes.
can we talk about that a little bit and what discipleship kind of is as relationship?
I think the evidence of that is what I was just saying about Jesus spending 18 months with his guys.
That's where the relationship began, and built over that time, right?
Yeah. Look, I think that we missed the point of that. I think maybe there's an old mindset that says, Billy Graham said, hey, you guys come down from the stands, the buses will wait. And we turned that into an instant decision. And we may have a history as salvos of having that idea of the instant decision. But the reality is, I think, in most of our relationships is people want to come and see. They're watching us. And when they see something in us, they go, what's different about you? How come you are so calm when the world is in chaos? How come you are so much at peace when your circumstances are not great? And I think our first invitation to people is that come and see invitation. Just be in relationship with people. And if you keep in mind that Jesus was 18 to 21 months in relationship with his people before they finally realized that he was the Messiah, we've got to give yourself a break, folks. We can take a breath on this. One of the things that I think when we read the New Testament is we tend to read it more about Jesus's commands and stuff, and we don't put it in to the life of Jesus at the time. So you'd read a verse that says, and they went up to Jerusalem. Now, we don't take much notice of that verse because it's not part of the story in our head. But to walk from Judea to Jerusalem, to walk from where Jesus was in Capernaum, say, to Jerusalem, is a 3-day walk. There's a lot of talking going on as those guys are walking along together. And I think this is what John's saying in the end of his book, where he says there's a lot of words that didn't get written down here. And I think, how much do you reckon those guys were saying, Jesus, explain this, or why do you feel like this, or what's the story with this? And I think we should be very intentional about the way we just live with people. I think we look for ways to bless them, look for ways to be, particularly in this environment at the moment, look to ways to show practical care for them, look to ways to be a listener, look to ways to reach out and stay connected with people. That journey of that. If Jesus spent 18 to 20 months learning to be with his people, why can't we?
Why can't we? Yeah, and look, and it comes down to journeying with people, doesn't it? It's coming alongside people in their faith journey and realizing that we're not all going to be on the same place in our journey, right? But we help each other along wherever we're at to wherever God wants us to be.
We're a link in the chain. Paul talks about one waters, one fertilizes, one digs, etc. We're part of that story in someone's life. And we need to be a vital part of that story. You can't cut out the watering part of the growing process, but the person who waters may not see the harvest.
Yeah, that's right.
And so just start spending time with people and enjoying their company. It actually takes the intense pressure of disciple making off our shoulders.
Yeah, and it helps us feel more comfortable in that space because sometimes we, like you say, we give ourselves a hard time, but really it just comes down to journeying with people in relationship and letting God be a part of that space and inviting him to be a part of those conversations, hey? Yeah, good stuff. Listen, we're in an interesting time at the moment. I think if I remember, the time that you spent with us, right after that was when all of this kind of went down. With COVID, and it's just kind of progressed in, and we're coming out the other side, sort of now in Australia anyway. and we're talking about easing restrictions, and we're talking about an awful lot of people are talking about, okay, what have we learned from this, and how can we use what we've learned to be more effective in ministry and to change in the ways that we need to change? So I want to ask you that question as it pertains to discipleship. So do you think that this time that we've spent has potentially changed people's perspective on what discipleship might be for them?
That's a good question. I remember when we were with you guys, I think it was the end of February, and we were the last plane out of Brisbane before everything got shut.
Yeah, that's right.
And when you say that, goodness me, the last end of February, and it's only just May, it feels like this has been going on for way, way longer than it has.
Yeah, it does.
And the truth is it really has changed us.
Yeah.
To answer the question, I think that there's a sense of which I want to answer it in two parts: discipleship and disciple making.
Sure.
Okay. I think what I have learned in my discipleship, my being like Jesus, that by being a little bit more fragile and vulnerable at the moment, it has reminded me that life is more tenuous and that I probably need to have a stronger connection with Jesus, both spiritually and emotionally, kind of mentally, in order for me to be stronger at this time. It's an interesting thing that I've been thinking lately, is that you feel like you want all of these things in life. You want everything right. You want you want to be able to do all your normal things, and all of a sudden the things I hated doing become important to me. I want to go to the shop. I hate going to the shop, but I just want going to the shops, And I'm thinking a lot more about the fact that the creator of the universe loves me. Goodness me, the God who created the universe took the time to love me. And I should be satisfied with that and not worry about the other stuff. So my discipleship is probably, you've had to ask questions of yourself and your mortality and your vulnerability and your relationships. So from a discipleship, the be like Jesus part, I think that there's been opportunities for us to be reminded that we need him. The disciple making side, I think, is we've got a tremendous, and please don't diminish the pain that people are going through here, and I don't mean that at all, but I think as a church we have a tremendous opportunity here. People around us, when I talk about my fragility and vulnerability, so is everybody else.
Yeah.
And I think that there's an opportunity for us, those who are believers, to first of all get your foot secured into your relationship with Jesus as you follow him, and then to be a different person in the world around you, so that you're the one who smiles in the supermarket chaos. You're the one who shows an act of kindness to the people around you. You're the one who stops and asks from a very safe distance, how are you going?
Right.
Because I think when we do that, we reflect Jesus. So we actually have an opportunity. Keep in mind also that if we're feeling vulnerable, other people are feeling vulnerable, so they are willing to ask more questions about more important matters in life. Now, some people are financially vulnerable. We can be the church that actually helps them out. We can create that relationship with them, not for any sort of manipulative purposes, but just so that we can show them that someone still cares, and then point them to the Jesus who still cares. So that really matters to us. I think the other thing is that we are beginning to learn that church isn't what happens on Sunday. That it's actually, church is who I am on Monday. Right. And I think we now, because we can't get everybody together on Sunday, have begun to learn that Sunday is not what church is. Sunday is just where church meets in order to be church on Monday. Yeah. So right. We're talking about the idea that when we gather to grow, but with the purpose of going. And I would want us to come out of this seeing a stronger connection between the great commandment, loving God, loving people, and also going into the world and making disciples. And the literal phrase, going into the world. Yeah. You know, the church is the church on Monday. The church isn't the people who are together on Sunday. That's where the church gathers to go into the world.
Yeah, it's funny. It's as if we've been pushed out of Sunday church, but pushed into Monday church and Tuesday church and Wednesday church, you know, and we've felt that we felt the need to be connected even more than we ever have before. And I want to mention the fact that when it comes to the current environment, and when it comes to discipleship and disciple making, I mean, we have opportunities now that, well, I suppose we don't just have them now. They were there, but we've been pushed into a space where we're taking advantage more of technology, of Zoom calls, of social media, you know, and all of these spaces can be used to encourage people to be closer followers of Jesus. And so discipleship, digital discipleship, if you want to call it that, you know, has been kind of pushed into our space, and we've felt that we needed to really embrace that, because it's really the only way, for all intents and purposes, that we can connect right now. I think we need to take advantage of the space that's there, and I think that's what we're thinking about at church, as a church right now, is when we come out of this, how are we different? How do we take advantage of this digital space, this online space, to continue to make disciples?
Yeah, I think you've got to ask the question as a church. When we come out of this, there's three questions, I think, that you ask as a church. What do we want to go back to? What do we want to stop? And what do we want to tweak?
Yeah.
And there's a good phrase about it, a good quote about it that says, crisis accelerates change. And so this is an opportunity for us as a church to go, let's just take a breath and say, seriously, that wasn't working for us.
Right.
We might like it, but it wasn't working for us.
Yeah.
You know, I think so. You've probably seen this, Tim, but someone's put a thing on Facebook that says, you know, the devil's saying, hey, God, guess what? I closed every church. And God's saying, no, I just opened one in every house.
Absolutely.
And candidly, I'd rather that said, I've opened one in every workplace, and I've opened one in every school, and I've opened one in, you know, not about, because I don't want us to be the church that goes, well, I'm really enjoying watching church in my pajamas with my coffee. I would want to say, I actually really enjoy being the church by being the nice person in the supermarket.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Randall, we're coming to the end of our time, and want to just express my gratitude to you for spending some time with us. Any last words as we go or before we go tonight for those that are listening?
Yeah, I don't do anything in short sentences, so I apologise that if this is a long one. But I think...
Oh, no, all good. All good.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I've learned about Zoom is you've got to wait for the other person to finish talking, and I'm not good at that.
All good, all good.
Look, I guess my message would be keep your eyes up and keep your relationships close. Trust Jesus. Keep looking for ways to bless people. Keep looking for ways to be Jesus, and keep looking for ways to build relationships with people.
Awesome. That's a good word. And as we go tonight, I'm sure that you wouldn't mind maybe interacting even in the comments below and answer a few questions. If anybody had a few questions tonight, they could put them in the comments, and that maybe you could pop on and answer any of those questions, and I'll do my best to do the same. But I think we can call it quits for tonight and just say an extra thank you to you. And if you're out there and you're not connected with Karen Del Salvos, you can like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram, and then you can subscribe on YouTube and click the bell icon, and you'll be notified when we put up content like this or other content. But look, thank you so much, Randall, and we'll say goodnight to you tonight, and we'll see you next time.
Bless you. Good to chat. Bless you.
All right. Bye.